recently recorded an off-the-cuff video about Google's broad-core algorithm update that started rolling out in May 2022. I'll leave a link in the video description for this video if you'd like to go and check that out. Now, as per Google's official announcement, that update has apparently finished rolling out, although as with anything Google does, this is always subject to change, and you might still find that there is some turbulence in your search rankings. Now, in this video, I want to make use of the additional time that has passed since that update first started rolling out in order to share what I believe some of the core implications of this update appear to be in terms of the direction Google's going in with SEO and search rankings going forward. The dust has supposedly settled. What have the impacts been? What do you need to consider for the future? Now, a quick disclaimer, when it comes to Google updates, there is always a great deal of conjecture, and for every example you can find of Google penalizing or rewarding a particular SEO strategy or practice, you can probably find an example where the opposite has occurred. So if what I say here doesn't necessarily gel with your experience and you've had something else happen, so instead of losing rankings, you've gained rankings, or instead of gaining rankings, you've lost rankings, then I'd love to hear from you in the comments section, and I'd love to hear what your experience has been. But just be aware of the fact that when it comes to these Google updates, it's not always a matter of everything being consistently applied for everybody. As always, please consider liking my video and subscribing to my channel for more digital marketing advice and insight. I appreciate every like, comment, and subscribe I get. Thank you so much for your support. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. There is too much content online. Back in 1798, an English poet by the name of Samuel Taylor Coleridge wrote a poem called The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and in that poem was a famous line that has stuck around since: water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. And that particular line, I believe, applies very well to the current digital and search landscape. There is water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. What I mean by this is that there is content everywhere online, but not a drop to drink in terms of quality content, at least not relative to what is out there volume-wise. So let's look at an example search. Let's say you want to learn how to clean your car properly. If you go on Google and type in how to clean your car, Google will tell you that it has around 1.75 billion results in its index that it could return you. Now, let's say that you went to go read through each of those and it took you 5 minutes apiece. It would take you around 16,000 years to read all of the content that Google has for this one search, how to clean your car. In 16,000 years' time, I have a sneaking suspicion that cleaning your car will be the least of your worries. Maybe cleaning your hovercraft, but the world is probably going to look like a very different place in 16,000 odd years' time. So with that in mind, how does Google even know what to prioritize? There's so much different content out there that they can present for almost every conceivable search. That's where this algorithm comes into effect, and where the changes of the algorithm are so important. I believe what's happening at a high level is that Google is increasingly aware that a huge amount of the content online that they can present for any given search is filler. Now, sometimes this content is poorly presented filler, i.e. total junk content, but more often than not, in my experience, a lot of content you find online is actually rather nice looking. It's well edited, or it's well presented. The visual appearance of it is very compelling and appealing, but when you read through the content and you get to the end of it, you think, hang on, I haven't learned anything useful here. This has provided absolutely no value. One of the easiest and most readily accessible examples of this is if you look up reviews of products, particularly best of a certain category reviews. So something like best coffee machines under $200. This is a classic search where you will see this kind of issue. What you'll find is that Google, still to this day, will return a lot of results from websites that basically don't actually review the product. What they are doing is doing good SEO and putting together appealing looking content that is really just a sort of summarization of key points, facts, and figures about products designed to get you to click through to an Amazon landing page so that you might buy the product, and that particular website owner will earn a commission through Amazon Associates or some other similar type affiliate program. Now, that's not to say that every review on every site that shows up for best coffee machines under $200 is a low quality filler content piece, but it definitely does happen. And if you're in the industry, especially if you've done affiliate marketing in the past, and I'll put my hand up and say I've been guilty of doing this exact digital marketing sin or affiliate marketing sin in the past. I've definitely done it before to make money online. But basically, if you're in tune to what goes on in this industry, you will see through those reviews quite quickly, because you'll get to the end of a review and say, well, hang on, there were 5 products here. There wasn't a single original image or video or any piece of insight. All that this person has done is basically repackaged and repurposed the content that the vendor has provided or that the Amazon sales page has provided. They might have extracted a few snippets from customer reviews and repackaged those as well. Compare that to an honest and genuine and sort of novel review of a product or a roundup of a group of products, where you actually see the reviewer open the box and test the product out and road test it over a longer period of time and come back and update with their longer term experiences. All those kind of things that would indicate a more genuine review. There's a very great distinction between these two approaches to building review content. Now, this issue with filler content is not restricted only to review websites. You see it with content sites as well. Question and answer content is a great example of this. It's become very, very fashionable and popular in recent years to build question and answer focused websites, whether you're doing that to build the site up and monetize via display advertising, or you're wanting to do this to attract potential customers for your real world business. And there are websites that produce fantastic content, but there are a lot of websites that produce very average, mediocre content as well. And I think really, if we look at this algorithm update, that is what Google is trying to solve here. They understand that for many users, the Google search experience is declining in quality because there is too much content that Google can present, and a lot of it is created purely as a means to an end for monetization. And I want to make it very clear, I'm not opposed to monetizing content in any way, whether that's affiliate marketing or selling your own products or display ad monetization or anything like that, because these are all things that I do, and if people didn't do them, I wouldn't be in business. But from a user's perspective, and therefore from Google's perspective, because if users have an increasingly unpleasant experience using Google search and they aren't finding what they want and they're leaving empty-handed, that's going to have a negative impact on Google as a business. So I believe this algorithm update is really a shot across the bow of this trend towards content everywhere, but not a drop of it to drink that's really any good, at least relative to how much content is being produced online. And we already saw this earlier with a previous iteration of a Google algorithm update, which targeted those rehashed or low quality product reviews that I mentioned earlier. So there were varying degrees of success with this, and what some people found was actually Google wound up showing these average reviews higher than they did before in some cases, and in other instances people who were only doing these roundup rehash low quality reviews lost a lot of traffic and more genuine reviews took their place. My experience has been that the reviews I've created on sites I own of products for affiliate marketing purposes, where I have been hands-on with the product, purchased it, used it, and given my honest view, they have definitely outperformed old projects I've worked on where I've done this business of summing up what other people have said about a product and trying to present it as my own facts and findings. But in terms of other ways that Google is attempting to solve this challenge, there are a few key considerations I think that you need to bear in mind going forward. One thing that Google seems to be doing in some instances is showing more short-form user-generated content from platforms such as Reddit, Quora, and niche forums. I believe there's a good reason for this, and it aligns with my own personal search preferences and experiences. I will often do a Reddit search to get an answer to a question these days because I typically find that I will get a better answer faster. Now, the answer might be written in poor grammar and with terrible profanity by someone with a username like TurdBurglar69, but TurdBurglar69 will answer my question, and he will answer my question more concisely than a lot of info sites will do, because TurdBurglar69 is not writing any kind of monetization in mind. He's only interested in answering the question, maybe to get some Reddit karma points or upvotes. But if you look at somewhere like a niche forum, for example, the same thing applies there. There's a very altruistic, community, old school internet kind of feel to these community sites. And I believe that that's one of the reasons why Google, in some instances, is starting to show these kind of results more prominently than they might have done in the past with this rollout of this latest algorithm update. Because an expert in an industry who's amassed 10,000 posts on a niche forum, that particular user or poster, they're not doing what they do to try and make money as a rule. that might come one way or another, but what they are doing is sharing their passion and their knowledge and their expertise and giving really good quality answers that most content sites cannot match up to. They might have content that looks better and reads better from a technical perspective, but is much more hollow and less valuable. So that is one area I think Google is going to look at in increasing importance in the future. And there have been some discussions around Google testing a new search feature in recent times called What People Are Saying, which is basically a feature that looks to present in a search result discussions directly from Reddit and niche forums and other similar sites towards the top of a search result, basically because they understand that those particular forums and discussion sites are providing better quality information. So this is something to bear in mind going forward. How you might leverage that? Well, one way to look at this is there an opportunity to participate in those communities and drive people back to your site while also adding quality content and genuine insight and value to the industry. Now, other developments in the Google algorithm that I think are worth bearing in mind is that Google looks like they are increasingly favoring specialization and demonstration of expertise and credibility. Generalist sites seem to suffer worse than specialist sites during this update, and Google has already demonstrated in the past their preference for targeted, expert, credentialed knowledge within what we call YMYL niches, your money, your life. This is things like health and personal finance and so on. Now, how can you present yourself as a credible expert? Lots of different ways to do this, which go beyond the scope of this video, but at a basic extent, you could look at things like adding your professional credentials to your site, including about the author information, linking out to an active social media presence, and doing research either independently or presenting other research, almost a sort of meta-analysis, if you're familiar with that term. Now, another development in Google's latest algorithm update is that video appears to have once again been prioritized and take a greater share of the search rankings. One analysis I saw, which I'll leave a link to in the video description, showed a 25% gain for YouTube video rankings in Google search, and along a lot of keywords that I track for my own websites and for clients as well, I'm noticing that quite prominently, that YouTube results are starting to show higher up in Google search, and there are more of them as well. Now, why would that be? Well, one of the reasons I believe is that with video, it is much harder to hide mediocre and low value filler content. With video, if you look at a platform like YouTube, users can very easily upvote or downvote a video. Although Google doesn't display the downvotes anymore, they are still collecting them, and that gives sort of first-party data very easily to Google. If Google shows a video for a result and it gets tons and tons of downvotes, it means it's probably not a very good video and doesn't answer the question very well or provide much value. Now, that's one of the reasons why video, I believe, is going to become more of a focus for Google. Not only that, but also because it does tend to engage users' interest better, but also because with video, it's much harder to just come along and sort of take someone else's content and repurpose it and present it as your own. You can do that, and there are plenty of examples you can find on YouTube and other video sites, but it's not as easy as with written content where you don't have to put so much effort in to do that. So I think video, if you are serious about projecting your expertise and knowledge in your niche or industry, is going to become more and more important. Now, the other thing that Google is looking to do as well is do a better job of matching search results to user intent, getting to the heart of what the user is looking for and supplying that information. So whatever search query or keyword you're targeting with a particular page or piece of content, put emphasis on truly adding value. That is what is really, really crucial here. Make sure that you genuinely understand the intent of the search and then try to match that as well as possible with your content, because Google will be trying to prioritize this more and more going forward, because as they are presented with this incredible overwhelming sea of content that they can pick from for every given search, what really matters is making sure that your answer, your piece of content, is the one that does the best job possible of answering the question or solving the problem. Now, before I finish up and recap, this leads us to one very important question. Why, as with just about every Google update, do big sites that often do a very average job of creating valuable or insightful content do well here? Every niche, every industry, it doesn't really matter what you're doing, especially the ones that are popular with affiliate marketing or display ad monetization, will typically have a whole load of larger players, whether they are sort of internationally recognized brands or industry recognized brands, that will do well and often gain with Google algorithm updates, even though their content is not necessarily amazingly good. Now, the reason for this is that these big sites, they're playing a different game. They have very strong domains, they have often very reputable brands, and they have lots of authority and sort of clout with Google from the number of backlinks that point to their sites. They are playing a different game to the average website owner, so you can't necessarily compare yourself to what these players are doing. And that's also one of the reasons why you do need to look at strengthening your domain over time, or becoming very, very good at both creating content that is really stand out in your industry and does the best job at answering the question or solving the problem, and then also specializing the extent that it makes sense and is relevant so that you can really stand out as the kind of key player, even if you aren't actually the strongest domain in your space. So as I mentioned in the introduction to this video, when it comes to Google algorithm updates, your mileage may vary. But from what I've experienced and the experiences of others I've read, as well as the analysis I've done so far, it seems that this update is at the very least an acknowledgement on Google's part that a lot of the content they could provide in response to a search query is not fit for purpose. There's too much content online. More and more of it is being added every day. It's truly overwhelming. Now, there is nothing at all wrong with building websites to make money, whether monetizing via display ads or selling products as an affiliate or using your site as a mechanism to generate leads or sales of your product or service. There is nothing wrong at all, and if there were, I'd be out of a job. However, it is becoming increasingly clear that there is a fundamental gulf between what the average searcher wants to find and what many digital publishers are providing. The searcher wants the answer to the question they're looking for, or the solution to the problem that they've got, to come first, and commercial implications for the publisher who's providing the content don't matter to the user really. The publisher wants monetization to take precedence, and as long as the experience that the user gets isn't so bad for the reader as to immediately make them bounce away or leave in disgust, then it's job done. There is a fundamental disconnect here. Google's search business can only survive for as long as they can serve the searching public with answers to questions and solutions to problems that give the user what they need. Too much mediocre content presents an existential crisis for Google. If users are going direct to YouTube, although Google does own that, or to Reddit, or asking in Facebook groups or on Twitter because the content that Google serves them up in response to a search is not good enough, that is a problem for Google going forward. Now, even though many publishers are acting with good intentions, e.g. hiring technically skilled writers, the fundamental disconnect there remains an inherent problem. Just because you hire a technically skilled writer, if they have no great knowledge of your industry, that they can just prettily arrange words on a page and follow grammar conventions, does that content really add any value to your industry or niche? Now, as Google works through this, there will be more algorithm updates, more winners and losers, more opportunity and loss. Of course, Google has not blamed this for this, in my view. It's a topic for another time, but their algorithm has in many respects encouraged the behavior we see, in which they now appear to be penalizing people having to publish screeds of content, especially longer form content, because that was the way to get rankings. But for digital marketers and publishers, I believe this algorithm update ultimately means looking at ways to improve your credibility, your trustworthiness, and your ability to match the search intent of the user searching the keywords you're targeting. Basically, ask yourself if the content you are about to publish is actually adding value, or if it is just made to look like it's adding value to possibly jack a featured snippet or first page ranking. Is the content truly valuable, or is it purely a means to an end? Now, obviously this is cold comfort if you think you've been doing the right thing all along and you get hammered by Google anyway. This is one of the worst things with any algorithm update. There is a lot of collateral damage, and I'm very sorry to hear that if this has been your experience, and I have had some of my sites negatively impacted. One thing I have also noticed with a lot of client sites, because of the nature of the businesses I work with, is they've done well out of this algorithm update, because even though oftentimes their content may not be the best presented in terms of how it's formatted or written, they're writing content from a position of industry authority, and this actually filters through to the value that's being supplied. Now, the other thing you could do as well, if this all sounds like too much hassle, is just try to build a super strong domain that can smash through the competition like a hot knife through butter. Thank you very much for watching. I'd be keen to hear your insight and get your feedback. Do leave a comment below, and remember to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.